Well, hello and welcome everybody to Astrology Hub's weekly astrological weather. This is your place for practical guidance for navigating the cosmic tides. We're so happy you're here. My name's Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub and the host of this show. And I'm here with Predictive astrologer Ann Ortelee. And we're here for your weekly weather. So Ann, let's start with the energy scale on a scale of 1, or intensity scale is probably more accurate. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do we have looking forward?
Probably like a 6, 7. It's a week of turbulence, but basically from planets changing signs. So when we have that, we're shifting energy, we're shifting seasons, we're shifting how it feels. So we have a lot of planetary changes this week. Sun goes out of Libra into Scorpio. So we're entering that 30 days of intense Scorpio energy of the fall in the Northern Hemisphere, the killing frost, the leaves fall off the trees, the transformation, halfway through, we get to the cross quarter day between fall and winter, Halloween, All Saints Day, and that energy where the Scorpio sun is at 15, where we are at the cross quarters. In the Celtic tradition, it's the new year. The souls descend to the underworld and come back. We also have Venus getting out of Virgo, where she's been a little cranky, and she's been causing some trouble, and she's going into Libra. So she's going to be a little more gracious, a little more charming, a little more whatever of the Libra nature. Remember, Virgo is not a sign she likes, but she likes being in Libra because she's about, let's talk, let's have a relationship, let's communicate. Mercury, who is retrograde in Scorpio, goes back into Libra this week. So he wants to talk too. Now, both of them are in a semi-sextile. So they're one at either ends of the Libra spectrum, but it does facilitate more communication. It allows us to talk a little bit kinder, nicer, sweeter, politer, looking for dialogue rather than arguments. Because Mercury now, as he shifts, he's now not going to be answering to Mars. He's going to be answering to Venus. Oh, how are you? What's going on for you? What's going on for me? There's a dialogue. We also have Vesta, I think it is, changing signs too, into Virgo. Yeah, Vesta goes into Virgo, and she's all about organizing the house, figuring out things, getting stuff done, and she answers to Mercury and Libra, so they're going to be making it prettier, making it nicer. So there's a lot of very congenial energy this week after all of the argumentative stuff of the last week. We do have Mars squaring Jupiter this week, so that's a little bit, but it's Jupiter. So Jupiter's usually nice, but he's bigger. So the Mars square Jupiter also happens. For the last couple of weeks, he's been squaring Saturn and Pluto, so it's been all wild and crazy. When he squares Jupiter, he goes, all right, I did my work here. And then he's still going backwards. And the COVID clump is all going forward, right? The Capricorn planets, the Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Saturn is pulling away from Pluto. He is on his way to Aquarius. He is not looking back. So he is off and running. Jupiter still has to come up and meet Pluto one more time, which will happen in November. So he's kind of building in. But basically, you've gotten all the details of the story, and now you have to figure out what you want to do. And that's really what it is. Everybody has to look at, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Now, last week we had a really delicious new moon in Libra forming a T-square in the sky. T-squares are action-oriented. It was opposite the Mars. It was squaring the COVID clump. And when it's a closing aspect, meaning it's coming in, and next time it meets, it'll be on the COVID clump in December. This is psychological integration of everything you've gone through. And so it says, okay, so what have you been going through since last January? Psychologically integrated. And of course, Saturn is back where he was in March. Pluto's back where he was in January. Jupiter's back where he was in the same time frame. So all of them, that's why they keep going, it's back when we're talking about the virus, but we're also back to those times. So the Harry and Meghan quitting, now we have the book about the brothers having the fight, right, coming out. And also Queen Elizabeth said, you got a year, figure it out. So Harry's supposed to go back and talk to grandma and figure out what's going on. They've settled, they bought a house. So it's kind of like we know. And so this energy now, is we kind of know, we're not yet in place, but we have a plan. And we've done a lot of work about understanding the structure Saturn that needs to be transformed to Pluto and Jupiter in a big way, right? So we know we've got big transformational work ahead of us, but at least we have the outline, the vision, and we're kind of going, okay, how are we going to do it? So it's a very helpful thing. The thing to remember is that Mercury and Mars are both retrograde. So when that happens, those planets are asking us to review and revise. So those planets both rule two houses. They rule your Aries house and your Scorpio house, and they rule your Gemini house and your Virgo house. So those houses are up for review. And then wherever, of course, Mercury lives natally in your chart, and wherever Mars lives, we go back to those places to say, well, what does Mercury want to teach you? So Mercury, in my case, is in my eighth house, and Mars is in my 11th house, right? So I am learning lessons about those houses. What's of value to me? What's of value to other people? What's my work in the world? Mars in the 11th. And then looking at how they lay out in my chart, we then go, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to go back, review, revisit, revise, because whenever planets are retrograde, we RE, and then we go forward. Now, of course, if you have those planets retrograde in your chart, like I have a client who has a Mars retrograde in Gemini, and he just closed 4 deals, right? Because Mars retrograde works for him, whereas for the rest of us, we're supposed to review, revise, revisit. So remember, when you hear those, don't do anything. No, if you've got Mars retrograde, go for it. You got Mercury retrograde. I had a friend who was a lawyer 3 times. He had Mercury retrograde in his chart 3 times a year. He had his cases closed. So that's when he got paid. So he knew he was going to work a lot in the retrograde. My computer guy, he knows I always mail him the retrogrades at the beginning of the year, so he doesn't take his vacation then, because he knows he's going to have a lot of work fixing computers. So yeah, it's so we don't stop activity. We understand what the planet wants us to do in that time. And my old teacher, Ken Kimball, used to say, Anne, I always look at what the chart's wanting me to learn. Like, I don't look at it in fear. I look at it and go, well, what am I supposed to learn when these planets do this? And that's what it is. Like, you have a map that's showing you, what are you supposed to be paying attention to and why? And focus on that, because that's your map. So you apply the transits to your map and you go, oh, okay, so Mercury's changing into Libra. But I'm going to be nice to partner now. I'm not going to fight with them anymore, or I'm going to communicate in a different way rather than with Mars and Mercury and Scorpio. Oh, Venus leaves Virgo. She's not going to be so critical. She's going to be pleasant and be charming. And, she's going to say graciousness, beauty. How do we work with it? So we want to use the astrology planets to guide us, but not be afraid of them. And now that everybody's going full steam ahead, you are going to really feel like everything accelerates, because it's picking up. Because Jupiter and Saturn are full steam ahead. They're all going ahead. Pluto's a little pokey, doesn't go that fast, but Saturn's like, bye-bye, see you in 37 years. And Jupiter's going to meet him and then say, bye, meet you again in 13 years. So we're at a departure, wrap-up, go kind of time. It's very, like, I'm looking forward to this week because it's going to feel like we're still Mars retrograde. We're not really done, but we're moving. So, yeah.
It's so funny. I was just saying that to someone I was checking out at the store. Mm-hmm. We got into a conversation and I said, it feels like the first part of the year was like never ending. Like, it was like the never ending year. And now all of a sudden it's like, boom, full speed ahead. It's almost like a little bit frenetic, the energy. It feels so fast. And all of a sudden it's almost the end of October. It's like, what, how'd that happen? So, but I was thinking that must be that direct energy that we're feeling from those big players. It's really kicking in.
They're cardinal action-oriented planets. So they are like, take action. And you're like, what?
Yes, just bring it.
What do you want me to do? You get, at the end of this year, we're all kind of feeling a little bit like, okay, Saturn, I get it. You're the big guy. I get it. You're hanging out with Pluto and Jupiter. The 2 of you, the 3 of you together, like, and they're like, look, we're breaking up the party. Here in New York, we had a 10,000 1,000, 10,000. It was 1,000 or 10,000 wedding got broken up. Some rabbi's kid, and the governor just said, "You're not having the party." I'm thinking, "Oi, the bills," But he was like, "No weddings.
Yes.
You can get married, but no lots of people." So yeah, it's like full steam ahead with a little bit of drama, but it's all good. This is what we've been waiting for. That, like, when's it going to be over? Now we have at least some idea of when it's going to be over.
Okay, so I have so many questions. There's a question that came from Kristen. And what is the psychological integration? Is that Mercury?
The Mercury and Scorpio, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, no, and also what happens, Kristen, is when we have planets, when we have an aspect, so we put the slower aspect here when the planets meet, and then they go forward. So like Mars and Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto all met up in March. So Mars is down here. So he's forming an opening square, which is the crisis of action. You got to take action. Then when the planet gets over here, when Mars gets over here in Cancer, he's going to be, okay, I see it clearly. I know what I'm supposed to do. And then when he gets up here to Libra in 6 months from now, or 12 months from now, he'll be like, oh, I psychologically understand what I've been going through. And then we close. And we get back, Mars gets back to there after 24-month journey. In the case of the moon, last January, there was a new moon in Capricorn. Now there's a new moon in Libra. Right? So the moon in Libra is forming a consciousness square to the Capricorn planets that went down in January. When that sun moon conjunction happened. So we have, as we go around the chart, every month we get a new moon in each of our houses. So this one, from the Libra point of view, because it's a 22 and it's squaring the Capricorn planets and it's opposite the Mars, it's a psychological integration of all the action steps we've been asked to take, even if we're not 100% sure we're going forward yet, how we're going forward, because Mars is still retrograde. But we're integrating our emotional needs with our idea needs and what's important for us about our relationships to ourselves first, because we have to stand in our own truth and our own integrity, and then our relationship to the outside world. Mm-hmm. So whenever it's a closing square, it's an integration. Whenever it's an opening square, it says take action. So you've been asked to take action since July 25th. And now you're being asked to revise your actions between September 9th and November 13th. And then you're going to be asked, okay, ready, we're going through the end of January. From Mars's point of view, but from the psychological thing, this is our moment to sit back and go, I get it. I get it. I'm integrating. And of course, Mercury's in Scorpio. So he's saying to you, you do understand where this comes from, don't you? And you're kind of like, no, really? And he's like, yes. And so that's why when Mercury retrograde, we get ghosts back. They come back and tell us stuff. They make us look at things. They make us understand stuff on a deeper level. And really the whole circle of life, we go around and around and around. If you remember that song from Lion King, like little kids saying to the big dad, what happened? He goes, well, eventually we die and we turn into the plants that we eat, that feed the wildebeest that we eat, like this whole circle. So the idea of astrology is this endless cycle of circles, with the goal being to guide you and also hopefully illuminate what your path is. Like, are you in the woods? Amanda said, like, we're in the movie, you can feel the music changing, right? You can feel it shifting, or like when scary music comes on, you go, ooh. So I've been having a lot of flashback to The Birds, that movie that came out in '63. Now, when I used to babysit, there were only 3 channels. And invariably on Saturday night, they showed that movie. And I would catch fragments of it. And I go, I hate scary movies. And I turn it off, right? I got the birds in my life. I got Vesta sitting on my Pluto. Many little birds sitting on the branch of a big tree, right? And I'm like, okay. And that was '63. And it's back again, because that was 19 years ago, the eclipse, right? So you watch these big cycles and you watch what comes up for you, and then you go back and go, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be learning about, right? That's what's happening. So with the T-square, with the new moon, full moon up here, Mars down here, Capricorn planets here, it's take action because you're conscious. Pay attention to your consciousness. Take action based on that. That's the energy. Yeah.
And that's what and when you brought up the Vesta Virgo, that was a Sabian symbol, right?
Sabian image, right, from the new moon. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, we can talk about that later because I
Naming
know.
images are really fun, and they give you really good guidance. I fell in love with them when I used to write a full moon and a new moon column for Stephanie Azaria's site, the Cosmic Path. She said, "Can you write the lunar phases?" Lunar. I said, "Yeah." And we had a red hawk circling in the sky, and we had a hawk on Fifth Avenue that was evicted because he would throw his garbage out the nest onto the floor, but it would land on Fifth Avenue, little bloody pigeon, and people didn't like it. So the co-op board evicted the hawk. Well, you evict a hawk, people get very excited. So there were protests, there were video cams. Red Hawk and Red Tail and Lola did get to stay in their apartment. They were not evicted.
So, okay.
But it was in the image. The image was in the sky.
Exactly.
Right?
So let me ask you that in a sec, because one question I want to ask you about is this integration period.
Yeah.
So how long is this integration period where we're really like taking in all the lessons and
Till the end of January.
Till the end of January. Okay. And then at that point, is it that everything is going to be direct again, and that
everything will be direct? Saturn and Jupiter will have changed into a new sign.
Right.
Mars will have finished his square with them all. And he'll say, okay, ready for the rebuild, ready for the Renaissance. Next year, remember, after every pandemic, there's a Renaissance.
But don't most pandemics last for years? I mean, I was like, it's funny
when another year of this one, but we start doing the rebuilding. Yeah.
Okay.
Start doing the rebuilding.
We start doing the rebuilding, even though there's still things happening. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I mean, I always look at the institutions here. The Met said they're not opening until next fall. So they pay big money to know when they're going to open. So they're closed till October of next year. So we're still going to have pandemic stuff, but with the Saturn Uranus, we get to do rebuilding of what we did. So if you think about, because Saturn is the leftover structure, Uranus comes in and changes them. And Saturn's in a psychological integration to Uranus. So he's coming in to psychologically help Uranus figure out what's going on. Actually, he's an opening square, as I say that. Uranus is in Taurus, Saturn's in Aquarius. Yeah, no, he's coming in. He's a psychological integration. Yeah. So we have to psychologically integrate all the changes, but we rebuild. We take down the old structure. So when you watch those fires in California or the flooding, and you see the burned out house and the chimney and whatever, you have to tear that down before you rebuild. So that starts in January.
The tear down.
Well, the tear down of what got destroyed.
Okay.
To be able to rebuild.
Right.
But that leads to the Renaissance. So you still own the property, but we're going to take out the building and the fireplace and all. Got to clear the property before we rebuild.
Okay. Wow.
So that's next year's job.
Right? Yeah. So this year has been the actual fire, not just the identification of where the fire needs to happen. And you're saying next year is the actual, okay, we need to like gut this thing and start over. Wow. Interesting.
Or move on.
Or move on.
I don't have to rebuild. I can sell the property and somebody else might want to buy it and do something else with it.
Right. Okay. So this Mars square Jupiter that we have this week, you're saying is
that's on the 19th.
Okay. Is less intense than like the Mars square Pluto or the Mars square Saturn, correct?
Yes. Okay. Jupiter is a nicer guy, right? He's a nicer planet.
Right. So whenever we've been talking about the squares, there's like this critical tension that is creating that urge or that need to move and like do something about it. So Mars squaring Jupiter, what type of, like, what's the quality or essence of that square, and what kind of
taking action about where there's been excess.
Okay.
Taking action about where there's been a little overdoing, taking action around what Jupiter's been trying to teach you. He's the great guru. So he's been saying to you, I'm trying to teach you something, right? When we opened this year, I did that Jupiter course for your inner circle folks, and Jupiter picks up each of our planets in different timings and works with them, but he always is teaching us something. So the Mars square Jupiter is, what have you learned? And then a little later in the week, we have Mars square Athena, which is, did you figure it out? Do you actually see it better? And we also have Mars in an aspect to Neptune saying, do you understand the reality that you're working in here? So it's productive on a multitude of levels, but it also is it's a do it, take action and do it. It's time to do it. And the square always represents opening square represents taking action against your understanding of what you're supposed to be doing. It's like, don't sit around on the couch anymore. Get up and go do it. Yeah. Okay. Or sit back on the couch and think about it before you get up and do it. But you have to do something, because you might say, I'm not ready to do it yet. I'm like, I know you'll be ready in January, but now you're thinking about it, right? And I'm like, I am. I don't know. I'm like, I know. Well, January, when Mars hits it for the third time, you'll take action. So, yeah. So it's kind of, because retrograde Mars, it's like 6 months of Mars in Aries from July through the end of December. So he wakes everybody up. 2, he says, okay, now what do you want to do? And 3, he says, all right, this is what we're going to do. So he's giving you, the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter saying major changes in your world. How do you want to handle it? And Mars is saying, I'm going to give you a little more time because I know this is really big. But you have to do something, right? And you're like, it's retrograde. You're like, I don't want. But when you do it, you actually feel better, right? And then you go, all right, maybe it's not so bad. And then when Mars goes direct, you go, all right, we're ready.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, Anne, for anybody feeling like this buildup of energy this month to what feels like a real culminating moment, right? Just, energetically everywhere.
Yeah.
How do we work with that, knowing that things are going to get more and more intense for a period of time without being paralyzed? So how do we take the both intuitive feeling that things are like kind of ramping up, but then also the astrological wisdom that's saying, yes, it is, and use that information to make wise choices, but not allow it to completely rule our life, where we're living and dying by, oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde, so I can't go outside, that kind of energy. How do you advise people in that way?
Well, I do find that there's a lot of stuff in the internet that's, oh my God, don't do anything. So the same lawyer I talked about, he married a woman who had Mercury retrograde. So the astrologer who elected the day picked the day Mercury was retrograde in the sky, because both of them have Mercury retrograde, and they got married on a Mercury retrograde, right? And a lot of people in the community in New York, because they're in the New York community, were like, I can't believe you picked a chart with a Mercury retrograde. And I'm like, well, he did that because they both have Mercury retrogrades, right? So he worked with their charts. The key is to work with your chart. Like if you've got a kid with Mercury retrograde, they're going to be a little wild. If you have Mercury retrograde, you're going to be a little wild.
During a Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, it's going to work for you. If it's not, and you're in a retrograde motion, just go, okay, that means I need to do rewords. I can redo, revise, release, research. You can still take action and do stuff, but it all shifts when it goes forward. So the point of it is to recognize the planets are retrograde, and then when they shift to go forward. So a lot of times if you get stuff on this time, it's going to change when they both go forward. Mercury goes forward on November 3rd. Mars goes forward on the 13th or the 12th. And back when I was younger and I was a baby astrologer, my dad called in, announced he had a prostate cancer and he wasn't getting it treated. And I was freaking out. And my astrology teacher said to me, it's Mercury retrograde. Let's wait to see what happens when it's over. And I went, and what happened was his doctor sat him down and yelled at him in a nice way and said, look, you can treat it and you'll die of something else. But if you don't treat it, you'll die of it. So why don't we treat it? But my father didn't want to give up his sex life. So he was like, I'd rather be dead than not have sex. I'm like, really? And he was like, yes. And all the men I said it to, and one of my friends, a Sag, got it. Yeah. And all the women I went, he'd rather be dead than not have sex. And they were like, what? I'm like, so the Sag friend of mine, she goes, your father really likes his sex. I'm like, but he'd rather be dead? She goes, yes. So, but when Mercury went direct, he got treated and he didn't die of it. and he lived happily till he was 90, so, and the parts worked.
Great. We're all waiting.
They continued to work because my stepmother would lean over and go, "You want to get sexy later?"
Oh my God.
So they were having fun up until the end, right? He's an Aries, take away those parts, he gets very upset. But I was freaked, but it reversed, it changed, it shifted. And so we go, okay, it's Mercury retrograde. So invest, research, and then you shift, how you feel about it when that happens, because there is a big change. Yeah.
And so, I mean, the way that I've been thinking about it too is astrology gives us a really powerful data point that we can integrate into our decision-making process. But it's not the only point. We need to also pay attention to our intuition, pay attention to the people around us. But it is a very important factor. I was thinking the other day, it's like if you hear it with the ocean, I'm on Maui. And so if we got a report that the surf was going to be really huge, you don't go out with your newborn in the floaty when you know that the ocean's going to be really intense. So you maybe either choose a different day or different activity or whatever. So astrology just gives us this, okay, this is what's happening. Here's how the waves are moving. And now you have that information, you can make a choice for how you want to work with it. And the way I'm thinking about the end of this month, and even just all the energy right now, is like, we don't hide away in our house, but we also, unless you want to, you don't need to provoke it.
But you might find you provoke it because it's Mars square. Yeah.
Accident. But one of the things I'm thinking is we can use the information and the knowledge to cultivate wisdom with how we work with these energies. Right. And there's a time to light the fire, and there's a time to watch the fire rage and not have to add to it. And so it's, again, there's been several things that have come up recently where people are trying to make decisions and they're thinking about the astrology and wondering how much of the astrology should dictate their decision. And, so for me, it's well, let it be a data point, but have lots of data points, and also talk to several astrologers, not just one. Listen to get several opinions. It's like don't just get one doctor's opinion, get several doctors' opinion, and then get quiet and make the choice that's right for you.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I know when I was younger, when my progressed son was going through Libra, what I would do is I would go and ask a lot of different people what they thought, and I would hear their things and I would listen to them. And then Mercury square Mars, in my case, I would listen to what they thought, and I think, well, I agree with that, I don't agree with that. So I kind of got that, kind of my polling, for lack of a better word, was a data point that I brought in. But then I knew I had to do it. And then when I got a little older, and again, Libra sometimes goes back and forth decision-y, a friend of mine said, well, what's your policy? And I went, my policy? And, when you have a policy, you externalize it, right? And well, my policy is this. Okay, that's your decision point. You can work with it as a dialogue. Think of your chart, because what your natal chart is having is getting stimulated by the transits. It's trying to have a dialogue with you the same way you have it with your friends. It's trying to say to you, well, think about this and think about that, and don't forget this part's going on. And then, the other part is not to deny its statement, because if you're having a big Neptune transit and you go, well, I'm having a huge Neptune transit, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, then I'm going to say, go pray, go sit in the bathtub, go do Neptune things, because that'll feed the Neptune, and then you maybe have a little more clarity. So I've been playing a lot of piano music. I've got this, I've been on Pandora, I have different things. So I've been listening to piano music without words, because I'm trying to get into my own words rather than listening to song lyrics that get me into their words. So, you learn your tools, but I do think don't use it to inhibit your life. And I do find that a lot when people, because it's like the third step into astrology. Yeah. You get in, then you go, wow, this stuff really works. And then you start going, ooh, that's a bad aspect. And it's, it's like, well, maybe lower form it's bad, but higher form is there for a reason. What are you supposed to be learning? I do, or how are you supposed to work with it? Because I'm a Virgo. How do you want to work with it? your choice. Always. That's where the freedom in that, it's that quote, in the place between stimulus and response, there's a pause and you get to decide. That's where the free will is. So you have the stimulus and then you have the response, but you can sit in that pause place and go, oh, and actually with Mars retrograde, it is suggesting, the heavens are suggesting, except for the Mars retrograde people, like my client who did 3 deals, it is suggesting you go back and look at old things before you go forward. Doesn't say you have to, but it suggests it. And a lot of times old things come up for you to go, oh yeah, that reminds me of that. Oh, that reminds me of that. I got it, heavens. Now you still may not know what you want to do with it. That's the next step, but you at least are illuminated. You at least have a consciousness. Yeah.
This is the karma thing for this year, because truly, if we're taking stimulus and then there's that pause and then there's a response, that pause period is where we're creating the karma. That's the place where we are actually deciding what kind of energy we're going to meet the stimulus with.
Yes.
And the energy that we meet it with is what's going to come back. These are the choices. It's like we hit it with hate, and we're going to get hate back. We hit it with love, we hit it with understanding, we're going to get that back. It's that choice point. And again, this year, so much about fear, Saturn, so much about karma. All these lessons.
Saturn.
What is karma? Exactly.
Saturn's a karma word. Yeah.
Right. So like, what does that actually mean? And how do I work with it productively in my life? And instead of it always feeling like it's happening to me, oh, this is karma, it's happening to me. It's like, well, it's actually just energy from the past meeting you again. It's just, it's meeting you again. And you have a choice again for how you want to meet that energy and transmute it, alchemize it, and meet it in a different way.
Right.
And there's so much opportunity right now, like all the time.
It's a little overwhelming how much opportunity we have. Like, really? That's my opportunity? What did I do? That's my opportunity? Right.
Exactly.
And if you know that, you can complain and whine. I'm totally good with that. But then you got to do something, right? So
right.
there's parts to it, yeah. And and you don't have to do it today,
right?
But you do know if you don't do it, Saturn's going to keep coming. Did you do it yet? It's kind of like, did you do it? And you got to do it. That's the hard part with Saturn, is you got to do it. Yeah.
Yes, you do. And the thing that I've realized with Saturn is if you just do that, if you make the shifts and you make the changes, it's relatively painless. But the more we resist it, the Saturn word resist, right? The more we resist it, it just has to get louder and louder and louder until we pay attention.
Right. And you want to go, I plug in my ears. I don't want to look. It said, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Yes.
My father had those 3 little monkeys in his office. He had a little sculpture carved with them. It was like,
yeah. All right. So in summary, it's a good week for dialogue.
Good week for dialogue. Good week for conversation.
It's a good week for dialogue. It's a good, so those questions, this is really where I love the listening to learn.
Yeah.
So dialogue, we think, speaking. Well, it's actually also a lot of listening. And so listening to learn what the other person is saying, what their perspective is, where they're coming from, with genuine curiosity and even sometimes playfulness, especially when we don't agree. That's a good challenge.
And remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yes. Exactly.
So my mother used to say to me, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You probably listen twice as much as you talk. Yes. I'm like, I'm an Aquarius rising. I like to talk. And I always think I'm right. Well, maybe I should listen. It's that kind of, yes, it's that definitely.
Yes. Okay. Vesta is in Virgo. And so this is a good time to beautify, to organize your house, to organize your space. We've been doing a lot of that lately. I've noticed there's been
she's going into Virgo on the 22nd. So she gets in there pretty quick. Yeah.
Yes. And then we have planets changing signs. So there's like this influx of new energy. There's an influx of new direction. And so using that sort of tide change to start to make changes in your life.
Yeah, and remember, when they change signs, they compensate for the issues of the previous planet, right? So something's in Leo, it goes into Virgo. Leo is play, play, play. Virgo is work, work, work. And then it goes into Libra, and Libra is, well, maybe enough work. Maybe you should go partner and have some fun and do some Venus stuff. And then you finish the Venus stuff, you come home and you do Scorpio stuff, you put the receipts in your purse, you know, in your Quicken, you know. So each planet, each sign change is the next stage, but it also is an integration or leaving behind or a looking, okay, I finished my play, now I have to go to work. Oh, I finished working all the time, now I should partner a little more. Oh, now I have to take accountability for what my partnerships were. And so each of the signs helps us move through our understanding of the seasons, and we slowly awaken over time. And of course, the Capricorn planets are the structures, the corporations, the government, the authorities. Remember, the universe constantly talks what's going on in the charts, in the heavens. Whatever is in your life that you tune into, that, you know, you notice something on the evening news, you hear something from your neighbor, something happens in your town. There's an integration that happens because you're paying attention to it, right? So Mercury Uranus is in Scorpio, right? So John Oliver, who I happen to like a lot as a comedian, he makes me laugh out loud. He just had a sewer treatment plant named after him. And he went up to cut the ribbon with the mayor of Danbury, Connecticut. And it's now the John Oliver Sewer Treatment Plant, Mercury opposite Uranus. I'm like, you know, you can't make this stuff up. It's very literal. It's very literal. Mm-hmm. So pay attention to what the universe is sending to you, what you're reacting to, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're going off on, and go, that's where the learning place is. That's where you're supposed to learn something. Mm-hmm. And that's really important. That's the best way to do it. Pay attention to what stimulates you from the outside world. It's yeah. And lean into it. Kind of go, okay, so what are you trying? And you can ask, what are you trying to teach me? And it'll be illuminated, you know,
right.
What am I learning? Yeah.
So all those times we're triggered. It's like, why am I triggered? Why am I like, why is this eliciting such a strong emotional response in me? Mm-hmm. And instead of justifying the response, the trigger, which is, it's not that it's bad or wrong, it's actually there to teach you something. So then just being open and receptive to what that is. What is that lesson? Okay.
What's that about?
Yes. All right. So we have you said a 6-7 week. Is that what you gave it? I can't remember.
6, 7. You know, it's emotionally processed. Sometimes there might be a little hole you fall in when we get to the Capricorn moon on Thursday and Friday. Right? You might fall into a little hole, but basically the moons are pleasant. So Sag moon today, tomorrow, Capricorn moon Wednesday, Thursday. And then it's Aquarius moon Friday, Saturday. So you're going to fall into a hole Wednesday, Thursday. But it's not a hole you're unfamiliar with. It's a hole you can fall in and climb right out of.
It's a shallow hole. Because
it's a shallow hole. It's just a little trip in the road, you know, where you go, all right, Saturn, I got it. I know I'm supposed to pay attention to that. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm finding that too. Like when we fall in those holes, but then don't react to the fact that we're in the hole. It's like, okay, I'm going to get out of the hole eventually. So I don't need to throw a hissy fit while I'm in the hole as well.
Right. But Amanda, when you stamp your feet, you're very cute. Very
Thank you.
I have Saturn and Leo. When it's mad, it is really cute. It's like, so I'm totally good with, you can stamp a little when you fall in the hole, but then you go, all right, I can stand here and stamp for the rest of the day, but I might as well get out of the hole and go do something else.
Yeah. Yes. Acknowledge the mistake and move on.
Acknowledge it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. This has been so much fun. And I just wanted to let you know, we have upped our Instagram game.
Oh, okay, cool.
We just decided it's like, let's just do this a little bit differently. How can we make this the most helpful as possible? So we're posting more, but we're also posting more rich content that is taken from the episodes that we do. So if you love like the encapsulated snippets, or like, you know, Anne's, what she was talking about, the squares and how those work. And if you like the instructional piece, but also the guidance piece in bite-sized like segments, you can get that on our Instagram page now. We're doing lots of cool posts. So check us out.
And you know, you don't have to listen to the whole hour. You just get that little.
Yeah, you just get the highlight reel on Instagram if you want.
Highlight reel. And remember, the highlight reel doesn't claims when they send it out, they're sending it out with the aspect in the sky describing it.
Yes,
So
absolutely. And
works
I
for
wanted
magic.
to thank some of you podcast listeners
Mhm.
for your reviews. I know I asked for them last week and some of you did that and it was so awesome. And I just want you to know, I can't respond to you there. So I see them, but I can't, there's no way for me to physically respond to you there. So I'm responding to you here and telling you thank you so much for taking the time to go and review the show. And that's just a call out to any of you who like this show, who benefit from the show. Please go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes or where else do you listen? Spotify, all the different places where you can listen to the show.
Pod Baby, I think that's one. Yeah.
Yes. And any constructive criticism we also like to hear, please email it to us because we can take that and we can even have a dialogue with you around it if you want. Every week for dialogue. So
It is the week for it's actually the month for dialogue. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So go ahead and email us. You can go to our website and use the contact us form. And we'd love to hear from you too. So thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a wonderful week. And thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.